This morning we continue our journey through Epiphany, that season when we celebrate the manifestation of God in our world. And we learn more about the qualities and nature of God today at a wedding in Cana of Galilee, when Jesus turns water into wine in what has to be one of the favorite passages for many Episcopalians that I know of. It's a celebration of God's abundance. God is a God that is so full of every single thing that human beings need to be who we are. Full of love, compassion, justice, full of expectation and vision and calling. Our God is a God of abundance, who didn't want the wine to run out at an important celebration 2,000 years ago, and who doesn't want us to ever run out of the knowledge of the depth of his love and care for us. It's interesting on this day when we celebrate abundance that St. Mark's is struggling so hard with its financial picture. Many people asked me to stand here and speak on that today. And my response was that while I've never preached a sermon on finances before, I think it's finally time that I do it. Because St. Mark's has to come to grips with its budget in a balanced way. Now let me give you some background on this. I've been at St. Mark's 8 years. 7 of those 8 years, we balanced the budget by getting a bequest from someone who has joined the church triumphant. Or we dipped into bequests from people who've already joined the church triumphant in previous years. Last year we didn't get a bequest. Perhaps it's because most of us stuck around. That's a good thing. However, the funds that we would normally go to are gone. So that deficit that we've lived with for 7 out of the 8 years is very real. And the level of funding that we can sustain at St. Mark's is now on the table. We have to live within our means. We have to present a balanced budget. We have to be responsible. But we need to know what those means are. So the vestry has convened a special task force that is meeting every week until the annual meeting to go over the budget. The senior warden, junior warden, and treasurer and I will be poring over the budget this week for hours, looking at every single line item. Now, I don't want anyone here to think that this shortfall in budget is because there has been a lack of abundance on behalf of St. Mark's parishioners. Pledging has not gone down 2016. Pledging has gone up. That's wonderful. 15 new families joined St. Mark's last year, and they each made a pledge for 2016. That's wonderful. It's not about not stepping up. People have stepped up. It's about St. Mark's never, in recent years, having been forced to live on pledges. And this year, for the first time in many, we're going to have to live on pledges alone. Or we're going to have to increase those pledges in order to determine what the means that St. Mark's lives within really is. There are some people who've asked me questions about how St. Mark's spends its money. One of the questions people ask is, well, look at the staff. Well, all right. Let's look at the order of service. Flip it over on the back. Take it out. Look at the staff. There are 13 members of St. Mark's staff. And I want to tell you that 7 of those members are volunteers, receive no type of compensation for what they do. In fact, they give of their time enormously, and they pledge, and many of them have increased their pledges this year. So over half of the people listed there receive no compensation at all. And that includes our wonderful deacon, Germain, and all the pastoral work she does. That includes Dr. Mary Lindell, who steps in and helps and gives us those marvelous adult forums on Holy Scripture. Some people say, well, why have 2 full-time priests at St. Mark's? Is that really necessary? If you look at the Episcopal Church's standard for pastoral care and ordained service, the standard is 1 full-time priest on staff for every 300 members. St. Mark's has over 800 members. This congregation needs 2 full-time priests, and it needs the help of a deacon and other wonderful clergy to lend a hand, just to make up that formula work, to make sure that we can be there for you when we're needed. Some people tell me, well, what about the music program? That's a big chunk of St. Mark's funding. St. Mark's has had a marvelous music program for the last 30 years. It's a huge part of our identity. This program is known as one of the jewels of the Diocese of Southern Ohio. It took a long time to build, and we enjoy it. Our worship is enhanced beyond measure by it every Sunday. I can't begin to tell you what a joy it is to have that resource here, and how many of us take it for granted until we start to chip away at it, little bit by little bit, and it starts to slide. And before we know it, we're going, what happens on Sunday morning? It just doesn't seem to be what it was. A year ago, we engaged a search for a new organist. Some of you know that for 30 years, one of the world's greatest organists, Michael Murray, was our organist, who for the majority of his time with us donated his services to St. Mark's. Imagine that gift of a world great donating his time. Well, when Michael came to retire, we put out a search. We had a number of applicants, and we brought in 6 finalists. And I decided I didn't want to hear all the 6 finalists, but that I probably should just walk around when they're being auditioned. And I decided, I thought the best way to do that is to need a mop or a broom or need something in the sacristy. So I would come in and herd each one of them. And we have an absolute treasure in Tyler, because I can't tell you how many of those finalists bumbled their way through Anglican hymns and had no conception of an Anglican style of church music. You haven't heard Lift High the Cross like I heard Lift High the Cross last year, or a Church as One Foundation. It was really something. We are so blessed to have the music program that we have. We are so blessed to have a conductor and a director in Matthew. We are beyond an abundance of gift and talent, allowing us to offer to God the best of our prayers and praises through music. We don't want to touch that program. Other programs we're going to be looking at very carefully. But to be honest, there's very little to cut except staff. So we're going to have to make some very serious and difficult decisions, whether it be people, positions, or hours, unless we can find a way to increase our revenue, to tap more into the abundance that God has provided for us. You know, I wish in the spirit of today's gospel that we could just fill the collection plate with blank pieces of paper and somehow they'd all turn into money. Kind of like that water to wine thing. But then I was reminded of the words of a wonderful treasurer for years ago in a former congregation who said, you know, the congregation wants to understand the financial picture. And when they really do, the reserve funds of the church are in the pew. My friends, that's what it is. If you can make an increase to your pledge for next year, or give a gift to St. Mark's for next year, we can try to better understand what we can afford as we move forward in ministry to a world that is crying for the love of God and turning to us to help that light shine.